In recent years, companies across the board are facing increasing physical climate risk. Climate-related extreme weather events such as wildfire and floods damage firms' property and disrupt their operations. Climate change does not only affect extreme weather events, it also brings gradual impacts on firms such as water stress and rising temperature, which affects firms' resource availability and reduce labor productivity. Facing climate risks, firms can seek to mitigate climate change or adapt to climate change, or both. Climate change mitigation addresses companies' impact on climate change and focus on greenhouse gas emission reduction. Examples include shifting to renewable energy and increasing energy efficiency. Climate change adaptation, in contrast, addresses the consequences of climate change on firms. For instance, some champagne companies in France have invested in English vineyard as the Champagne region has warmed. Management literature have primarily focused on firms' climate change mitigation strategy. Essentially, it is a decrease of the firm's impact on the environment. Studies on firms' climate change adaptation, essentially strategies firms take to address the impact of the environment on the firms, are less understood. And this is exactly the focus of this study. In the study, I asked the following research question: how do firms adapt to physical climate change exposures? I developed a novel data set to measure a firm's adaptation to climate change exposure at the firm climate exposure year level. First, I collect firms' physical climate change exposure data from 427. It is a climate science-based data. 427 evaluates the climate risk by utilizing climate projection models at the specific locations where risk factors are measured. It is not only about historical weather data, but forecast of midterm climate impacts on companies. I use firms' disclosed adaptation from CDP climate reports to approximate firms' climate change adaptation strategy. I read through all companies' disclosed adaptation strategies in CDP reports and hand-coded the data. I then merged the adaptation data with physical climate exposure data at the firm exposure year level and focus on climate risks of firms' direct operations. I document some stylized facts of physical climate risk and firms' adaptation by industry, risk, region, across time. Most companies don't adapt to most climate exposures. Regarding how and under which conditions, I find that firms are number one, more likely to adapt, and number two, with broader ranges of adaptation in response to the climate exposures that are most salient to their business. Turning to the mechanism, I find that higher levels of climate exposures increase firms' perceived impact of climate change, thereby increasing adaptation. Also, firms with better ESG capabilities and longer time horizons respond more often and more completely when facing higher physical climate exposures. In the paper, I also discussed some implications of our findings for regulators, managers, and investors. I hope you will enjoy reading the paper.